There's a very specific season in leadership that almost nobody names. Nothing's gone wrong. You're still capable, still sharp, still delivering at a level that most people would struggle to sustain. The results are there. The respect is there. The structure you built still functions exactly as it was designed to. And yet, there's a faint sense that something isn't landing the way it used to. You can't quite articulate it. Like if someone asked you what's wrong, you wouldn't have an answer. Nothing's wrong exactly, but something feels slightly off. Not dramatic, not urgent, just different. The way you operate still works. You can still execute it flawlessly. You can still prepare, anticipate, deliver, outperform, but it doesn't stretch you in the same way. It doesn't feel expansive. It just feels efficient, contained, predictable. You notice yourself pausing before starting things that you used to move through automatically. You notice a subtle resistance to doing it the way you've always done it, even though that way's been successful in the past. There's no crisis forcing change, just a quiet awareness that the fit isn't exact anymore. And when there's no failure to justify the shift, well, that's when it's hardest to name, isn't it? Maybe this is what it looks like. Maybe you're in a meeting and there's that familiar pause in the room, the one where everyone looks slightly unsure, and you feel it rise in you, that reflex to step in, to clarify, to move the conversation forward. You've done it 100 times before. You're really good at it. It's part of why you're respected. But this time, there's a split second where you think, why does it always have to be me? And then almost immediately you speak anyway, because you don't want it to stall. You don't want it handled badly. Well, that's badly according to your standards, right? And maybe if you really look at it, they're not speaking because, well, you've trained them to assume that you've got it covered. You became the way shower in the room. So, of course, they defer. You don't sit there analyzing the dynamic. What you notice first is the irritation, the sense that you're carrying more than you want to. And then you tighten back up. You lead it, you answer it. You take responsibility for the outcome, even the parts that were never technically yours to hold. Because if something drops, you think it's going to land on you. And every time you do that, your workload expands, your energy narrows, the mental tabs stay open longer than they should. There's a quiet resentment that builds in the background. And it's not at them exactly, but it's at the pattern that you keep reinforcing. Or maybe it shows up in preparation. You used to rehearse everything. You'd think through every angle, every question, every possible outcome. That's how you stayed ahead. That's how you kept your edge. Now you don't want to do it in the same way. You want to trust yourself more. You want to walk in and respond rather than perform. And when you prepare less, that doubt creeps in. Maybe this is complacency. Maybe this is what happens as you get older and you lose that hunger that made you exceptional. So you dial it back up again. Not because you love it, but because you're not yet fully settled in the identity of the woman who can trust her capacity without rehearsing it 5 times already. And then there's Sunday. You open your laptop in the afternoon and you tell yourself that you're just getting ahead of the week, just clearing a few things so Monday feels cleaner. But the moment you open it, you're back inside it. You've placed yourself on work again. The weekend shortens. The mental loop restarts. And part of you is aware that there are other things that you could be doing with that time. Things that you're curious about. Things that you say you'll explore when work settles down. But work doesn't settle down because you keep tightening the system to keep it running smoothly. This is how many of my clients describe this shift. It's not collapse. It's not crisis. It's just this ongoing oscillation between loosening your grip and tightening it again. And the tightening's starting to cost you more than it used to. Exhausting, isn't it? It's easy in moments like this to start looking for explanations. Maybe it's burnout. Maybe it's hormones. Maybe it's menopause. But this isn't something breaking down. And it's not that you're losing your edge. That's often the quiet fear, right? That sharpness that made you exceptional is somehow fading. It isn't. What's happening is more subtle than that. The identity that built this level of success is no longer the way you want to lead. Identity is strengthened in the doing. Every time you step in, carry it, answer it, rehearse it, tighten it, you reinforce the previous version of yourself. That's how she became so solid in the first place. Repetition, responsibility, results. You can continue leading that way, you know how. You can sustain it for a while, but sustaining it now requires more from you than it once did. And at the same time, there's a pull toward a different way of operating, a way that relies less on being the automatic answer and more on creating space, less on rehearsing and more on presence, less on that bracing and more on steadiness. Here's the thing, you don't yet have the proof that this way is going to deliver the same outcomes. You just have this internal sense that you want to lead differently. And that's the corridor, right? The identity that built this levels, it's still available to you. It's just no longer the one that you're willing to reinforce. So here's what shifting actually looks like in real life. It doesn't start with a dramatic declaration. Well, not usually. It starts with moments. It looks like holding the pause in the meeting a few seconds longer than feels comfortable and letting someone else step forward, even if their answer isn't as polished as yours would have been. It looks like preparing well and then leaving it there instead of rehearsing it into certainty. It looks like closing the laptop on Sunday afternoon, feeling the pull to just clear a few things and leaving it closed anyway. That's not negligence, that's identity training. And here's the thing, you don't go from Sunday checking to Friday completion overnight, right? You build towards it. You practice tolerating the slight exposure of not tightening everything up. You let the system rebalance without you being the constant center of gravity. And as you do, something begins to open. The mental tabs reduce. The background resentment softens. Other people grow because you've left space for them to. Your thinking feels less crowded because you're not carrying the week before it begins. And eventually, closing that laptop on Friday feels clean. Not defiant, not performative, complete. But that kind of completion's earned through the smaller Sunday decisions where you choose not to reinforce the old identity. Staying will keep you excellent. Moving gives you range. And when what used to work stops feeling expansive, it's really because you've lost your edge. It's usually because you're ready to lead with more range than repetition. There are seasons in leadership where nothing's broken and yet something feels finished. Not finished in the sense that you can't do it anymore, but finished in the sense that you've mastered it. You've extracted everything it had to teach you. And continuing to lead the same way would keep you successful, but it wouldn't keep you evolving. And when what used to work stops feeling expansive, it's not a warning sign, it's an invitation. An invitation to widen your range, to redistribute responsibility, to trust capacity without rehearsing it into certainty, to elevate your leadership. Now, that doesn't happen all at once. It happens in the small moments, the pause you don't fill, the answer you don't rescue, the Sunday you leave intact. Identity shifts are built in those decisions, and over time they stabilize into something that feels cleaner, lighter, more precise. So if something feels slightly off right now, that's okay. You don't need to diagnose it. You might simply be outgrowing the way you learn to succeed. And next week, I'm exploring what makes that shift sustainable. Because if you're expanding your range, your recovery gets to expand with it. But for now, let today be enough. You're not losing your edge, you're refining it.